everybody, this is Casey. We're here to talk about archetypes tonight. Hope you all had a nice week. I didn't get a chance. Okay, every time I tried to go in and do the weekly energy for the collective, the internet was out. So I was going to go in last night and do one for this weekend, but then I got home too late. Hey, Jack, how you doing, hon? First one in, Jack. You behaving yourself, Jack. Yeah, you're the first one here. Yeah. I've only been on a minute and a half, so give him a couple minutes. We got a couple people I know that are not coming in because they need to take time off from YouTube. You know, they need a break. You're misbehaving as usual. Any options on getting moved yet? So we're going to talk about 3 archetypes tonight. Yeah, somebody you know. Yes. Somebody you know. So we'll talk about 3 archetypes tonight, and one of them is the only one that had it, the star. That'll be the last one. I think that's the last one we'll talk about tonight is 10,000 short of moving. So Daisy and I started doing something. It's from all the Neville teachings. It's wonderful. Wonderful things are starting to happen around money coming into my life. And you think that over and over and over again every night until you go to sleep. There's another one I've been doing for health, and it's funny how things have fallen into place. Universe, thank you for showing me this situation. I said this health issue is already solved and healed. Yeah. Neville, I'm telling you, Neville and Florence Scovel Shinn had some of the simplest teachings. The very simplest teachings. Yeah. So Jack had spiritual, intellectual. We're going to talk about intellectual tonight and visionary. Now, spiritual and intellectual kind of, yeah, Hicks, Neville, yep, exactly. We're not getting to spiritual yet, but intellectual kind of integrates with spiritual some. That's why I wasn't too concerned because spiritual came in second. It's looking for the truth, you know. So Star's the only one that had Rebel. So we'll wait and see if she comes in. Okay, so first one we're going to talk about is the fashionista. this is what I told Daisy was. But she came up as, they called it something else. What did she come up as? Daisy. A tastemaker, which is actually just a borderline off from this one. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do this. So the fashionista can be called the tastemaker, the stylist, the goddess, the model, the diva. Okay. Their life lesson is to pursue a life that is not about appearance but self-empowerment. The challenge is to develop your inner qualities to express your own external beauty. The universal lesson is to discover how painful it is to be judged for the externals, how you look, weight, size, hair, tattoos, rather than for the quality of the person you are. Okay. The defining grace is exuberance. So the shadow part is the ugly duckling who never became the swan. The myths that they're dealing with are clothes that make the person. You don't get a second chance at making a good first impression. And then the Cinderella rags to riches. Their characteristics are loves fashion and still not be a slave to it. Always looks good. They use fashion to develop self-esteem. They also work to help others find their own personal style, okay? So their challenge is, how do I find my lifestyle that shows who I am and empowers me as a person? Oh, we should have one other person coming in. Jack, you won't be by yourself anymore. The lone wolf. Hi, Alban. So the fashionista is a relatively new archetype. Okay. How you doing, Alban? It's based on media, fashion models, designers, the internet, advertisement. Okay. But you need to look back to, it developed out of the women from the 60s and 70s, okay? Where women were learning their freedom of expression. They started exploring their individuality and their self-esteem, breaking out of those molds and expressing who they are, okay? So their journey through history is what you wear is a reflection of power. You look at things like, well, there was a family crest, there was a crown, there was a ring, designer shoes. You had to dress a certain way. You had to be a certain way. You know, it reflects our place in society that says I have power. Okay? Maybe I'll only have 2 people tonight. It's summer. You know, I can express I am a member of the royal house. Okay. So designers not only create styles of clothing, but they put out an energy force that creates a fantasy of and a field of power. Okay. So clothing for the fashionista is a self-expression. Look at me. Look at me. It's an expression of your inner feminist and tapping into your power. And the self-talk that brings up imperfection is the shadow part, okay? Nobody's as hard on us as we are on ourselves. Remember, you need self-esteem to wear fashion well, and you get better with age, no matter your weight, body type, anything. You're too sexy for your They love being noticed. Okay? They love to create their own style, to express their own indefinable qualities. Okay? It expresses you, who you are, how you feel about yourself. And if you put on something that doesn't make you feel good, that doesn't reflect your self-esteem, it will bring your energy down. Okay? If it doesn't resonate with you, it will make you feel powerless. It's not just a hobby. It's a part of your identity, okay? So the lesson is, how does it feel to be judged by appearance rather than the quality of the person that you are? No one likes that. And everybody's got a fear of being judged or humiliated, but they have a fear of being judged or humiliated for imperfect fashion. Okay? Doesn't look good on you, you don't fit in. And then they have these worries about someone's younger than you, prettier than you, thinner than you, has less wrinkles than you, thinner you. Then when you worry about that, you don't have a very strong inner worth, or you need to tap into that or you'll crumble, okay? All the best outfits that you can put on doesn't make up for a lack of self-esteem. So the defining grace is exuberance. Exuberance is a sensation. Okay? It's a sensation of you being in the exact body that you came in. Being who you are. You knowing how to appreciate the beauty and loveliness in your life and focusing on the gratitude. Okay? That you would not change a thing about yourself. Just remember, you have the ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And you have the potential to see the beauty in everyone and everything, including yourself. So the shadow is competing with not real standards of beauty. Again, like, I'm not slender enough. I have too many wrinkles. I have cellulite. I'm not pretty enough. Okay? So anywhere you see the imperfections, the physical failure, and feel powerless, okay, when you can't find the beauty within yourself, the way out is realize that there is a beautiful swan within all of us. Okay? And the myth, clothes make the person. No, the person makes the clothes. You don't get a chance to make a good first impression, okay? So the challenge is you're a creator. Your creativity is not just limited to fashion. It's a stylish environment and social life. Being seen at the right places, in the right clothes, at the right time. Creating this is a reflection of who you are, what empowers you. You're creating your mind, body, and your clothing lifestyle. So your behaviors, you always look good no matter what. You wear your clothes. Your clothes don't wear you. You see fashion as a way to develop your self-esteem. You're a savvy shopper. And you like to experiment. You see the beauty in yourself and others, and you try to inspire others and help them find their sense of styles. You don't diet, you go out and exercise and eat right. Shopping sprees are for finding the clothes that empower you. You help inspire others and see fashion as your personal art form, and you set your own beauty standards. Okay? Okay, Jack, you and I both had this one. Intellectual. Kardashians. Yeah. All band, what were your? Let me look. All band. Spiritual. Okay. Intellectual. No, that's star. All band. Visionary, spiritual, and tastemaker. Okay. So we just did tastemaker, which is also the same as um, the fashionista. Okay. So we're gonna work. Jack and I both have intellectual. Hey, Star. We're gonna talk about yours tonight, Star. You being a rebel. So the intellectual is of the thinking family. Okay. They can be a professional. They can be a student. Uh, I'm going to say, because of what the way it talks about this thing, it could be also will go hand in hand with the spiritual path. Yeah. It's to pursue knowledge for the sake of knowledge and discover truth in all expressions. Okay. The challenge is to remain open-minded, open to new ideas. Okay. Universal lesson is to discern the difference between reason and truth. The defining grace is wisdom. Inner shadow, using intellectual skills to play mind games and compromise truth. The myths. Oh, I had to put up. My mom programmed me with this one. If you're a good person, nothing bad will happen to you. There must be a logical reason for everything, and there's not. This comes down to the I have to figure it out. Okay? So the intellectual learns for the sheer love of learning, responds to life with the head before the heart, looks closely and considers all the options before acting, cultivates wisdom to improve life for herself and others. The challenge is not to overthink. Do you overthink, Jack? The life's journey, one sentence. You have a passion for exploring the power and riches of your mind. This archetype is pursuing knowledge for the sake of discovering truth in all areas of life. That's what set me off on my spiritual path in the first place. For being sick, I have to know. I have to find out why. What can I do about this? For the innately curious intellectual, living in the internet age is heaven on earth. It gives you access to endless streams of information. So they differentiate between data, information, and knowledge. Information is the basis of most of our communication with one another. Knowledge is something else, and no one knows better than the intellectual. Knowledge is an understanding of the full spectrum of what can be comprehended by the human mind. Yeah. Ooh. Attention. Ooh, shiny. Attention deficit. If you are an intellectual, you're motivated by the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, by a love of learning and a thirst to understand why things are the way they are. So, intellectuals thrive on good conversation and sharing ideas with other lively minds. Ooh, I wonder why I have a YouTube channel. Communication is vital to you, but the measure of an intellectual is not how articulate you are or how many facts you've acquired, but how well you're able to integrate knowledge and experience into an into a understanding and appreciation of life. Okay. The intellectual sees the world as a web of interconnectedness. And on a spiritual level, we understand that even more. The intellectual understands interdependence at a molecular level. Mentally intuitive, grasping the scientific structure underlying it all. The intellect is the source of our ability to reason on all levels, logical, ethical, and moral. The intellect is an endless resource, an inner library of information and knowledge that weaves reason and logic with intuitive intelligence. Like I said, this can be intertwined with spirituality too. That's why I wanted to worry, because it came before spiritual, okay? Yeah. And their intuitive and emotional intelligence are two expressions of intelligence power. And they both rely on intuition. Hey, Jason. Okay. Intuitive intelligence is developed as a result of becoming congruent by making sure that your words and actions are consistent with what's in your heart. We're not born congruent human beings. We earn integrity one life choice at a time. Casey. We're talking about intellectual right now, hon. We just did fashionista. How you doing tonight, hon? We love you, Casey. So we earn integrity one life choice at a time. It takes courage to give your word and then keep your word, even to yourself. Hey, Patty. You have to identify your values and spiritual beliefs and make sure certain your daily choices are in alignment with them. Okay? But it's precisely through these choices that you build self-esteem. Self-esteem in turn opens you to intuitive intelligence. Your five senses alone are not skilled enough to spot illusions. Neither is the rational mind, but together they're able to discern the truth. So you need the intelligence and the intuition. Hey, Crazy Crystal. You need to learn to trust your intuitive resources and trust them. Okay? You become a congruent person through consciously deciding to confront what is congruent about you and then choosing to bring that part of you into alignment. Okay. We already did fashionista and we're doing intellectual right now. So the great library we're calling the intellect is stocked with book learning, life experience, common sense, intuitive intelligence. And these help us make clear decisions. The storehouse of knowledge brings professional success. Being a creature of the mind only goes so far in satisfying your curiosity about living in a meaningful life, not just thinking about one. Pursuing knowledge and exploring the riches of the intellect inevitably bring you to deeper questions like, what are my real values? What should I be doing with the rest of my life? And the challenge? Being open-minded. Keeping an open mind to new ideas can be a challenge, big challenge. Oh my gosh, Casey. I don't like to do political stuff, but everything that's been going on, they're over here having a fit about a justice having a gun outside their house, but yet it's okay for shooters to go into schools. There's no common sense anymore. Just keep focus on they're safe, hon. They're safe. They're mom's loving arms. Make sure you do something fun with the kids for you and the kids this weekend, okay? Yeah, no common sense. And I listened to a guy that was a former Marine. He said the type of weapon that you are allowed to have is dependent on your rank in the Marines. And if you have personal ones, they have to be registered, licensed, and you have to have education behind them. Okay. He said that there should be education on each for every type of gun that you get, and there should be different levels. Oh my God! Well, thank God it wasn't something worse than that. I mean, that's awful enough, Casey. That's awful enough, but thank God it wasn't a gun. See, we have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. So, with a sharp mind, it's easy to think you're better educated, better read, better informed than anyone else. But keep your mind open. I'm stuck on. I have to figure it out. What is it you don't already know? I have to figure it out. So when you have an open mind, when you're an intellectual, the rewards are great, okay? And here it is. Common sense, our most useful form of intelligence, tells us that it's impossible for us to know everything, even about ourselves. We need the input of others, their feedback, their ideas, and their wisdom to challenge what we're thinking and seeing and give us a different point of view. Keep an open mind. I was traumatized seeing a guy in the parking lot exposing himself at, at Kmart once. I can imagine what that would be for the kids. Oh my gosh, girl. You didn't hear more till 4. Oh my God. I'm sorry you went through that, hon. This seems to be your challenging week, isn't it, hon? So the universal lesson, a characteristic of Western society is we are in love with our reasoning capacity. The quest to find the reason why things happen as they do and why they're the way they are is practically in our DNA. But they have a good description of who it was, though, right, Casey? I hope. We just have to know why. We assume that behind every event, personal or cosmic, there's a perfectly good explanation. You know you have much love, all of you. All of you. Yes. So this archetype has to try and find a logical explanation for a health crisis. I wonder who that could be. One trigger event or trauma that seeded the problem. If I can find the reason why this illness happened, I can find the cure. There is more than Western medicine. Let me put it that way. Yeah. Honey, you're not bringing the energy down at all, hon. Stay. Let us surround you and your children with some love. Honey, you never ever bring, even when you're worried about bringing the energy down, hon, you're still our sunshine. You're still our sunshine. Don't ever think that you're not, hon. So if you have the intellectual archetype, you will be challenged by your rational mind because life is not rational, logical, or fair. We all experience mind exploding events that feel unfair. Why? Because this game of life itself does not revolve around any one of us. There's 7 billion players on this planet. We love you too, hun, and come back later after they're in bed if you're not too tired, hun. Yes. Just keep in touch, okay, Casey? So intellectuals have a need to tap into their intuitive skills to navigate the paradoxes and mysteries that are hidden in every second of life, in every corner of your heart and soul. Relationships are certainly not rational, nor healing, forgiveness, okay, and following your gut when all rational odds tell you to do otherwise. So basically, yeah, there's tapping into your intuition, so the defining grace is wisdom. Okay? The wise elder, the sage are archetypes that have traditionally been the wisdom carriers for society. They don't have any places in our society anymore because our society thinks that the older people don't have any wisdom anymore, Wisdom comes from the knowledge of ancient and timeless truths that have become guiding principles, worthy of living by and passing on to the next generation. Jack would be able to attest to that. Yes, come back, hon. Come back later when we're doing spiritual talk, okay? And then we'll be able to love you up a little more. Hard week for her. How does the grace of wisdom serve the intellect? It calls you to think twice before doing harm to another person. It's a voice inside you that in the midst of emotional conflict whispers, are you sure you want to do that? Because if you do, your relationship may change forever. I did that. I did that once. That little voice popped up and says, are you sure you want to do this? I did it anyway. Had a lot of regrets afterwards, but it was probably for the better. Wisdom inspires you to consider the consequences of your choices, their effect on your life and lives of others. Knowing the laws of the universe and understands that once a choice is made, there is no way to stop the cycle of consequences that is set in motion. Hey, Aisel. It is the grace of wisdom that continually reminds you of unfinished business with another person and when you need to forgive. And it is wisdom that reminds you that this is the archetype. Integrity and honesty are the foundations of a fulfilling life. The intellectual type has a love of truth and respect for wisdom that even without wise ones, this grace will not be lost as long as you're in the world. You revere the sages of the past, but your own life is also among the finest wisdom teachers. You've accumulated a storehouse of wisdom in your life through your own life experiences. The lessons of truth you've acquired are your wisdom jewels. Intellect is often hidden underneath our greatest hardships, and it is the intellectual who understands that the search for wisdom is the true path for healing. Okay. So the shadow side, Mind games. Everybody plays mind games. Don't fall into the trap of trying to be smarter than another person, to figure it out, to outwit them, okay? Don't be manipulative. Don't compromise your truth. It says, I love the teaching of Buddha in which he told his followers never to get attached to the illusions of life, but to let the spectacles pass them by. In the moment, something can look as if it's something we must have, we must control, or else what will happen? What will the world come to an end if you don't have it? Will your life cease to be? Will you never see another sunrise for all eternity? Never invest so much of yourself in any situation that you're willing to compromise your integrity in order to maintain the illusion. I wonder who this is talking to this time. Once the cycle begins, it is nearly impossible to release yourself from it. The intellect frees itself from the shadow by knowing who she is at all times and living from her truth. Every choice that you make in life, from what you eat to what you say to how you judge today's events, sets a cycle in motion that remains in motion forever. Always tell the truth to others and to yourself. So the myths that they tell themselves. If I'm a good person, nothing bad will happen to me. Oh, my mother drilled that into me. And then I had some of my in-laws said, if you were a good person, this and that wouldn't have happened to you. Well, they're the ones that created it to be bad. There's a logical reason for everything. If I'm entitled to have good things happen to me because I paid my dues. What kind of illusions are those? Those are big time illusions, okay? So deep in our spiritual DNA, we believe in some way that if we're good, bad won't or at least shouldn't happen to us. It's like, I don't deserve to be treated like this. She didn't do anything to deserve that type of suffering. Somehow we associate bad or painful experiences with punishment, which assumes, of course, that there's someone up there in charge of all cosmic punishment. Okay. At the end of the day, we all live in our own inner world, created by our own archetypes, stories, myths, wounds, sense of entitlement, and curious system of logic, order, and justice. As an intellectual, you especially prize logic, order, and control, and you readily internalize myths that have a seemingly rational basis. They make you feel safe. The wisest move for the intellectual is to go in search of your own truth. Know thyself, and you will know the universe. Okay. So the challenge is not to overthink everything. That sounds like an air sign trade anyway. You trust too much in what you think you know, or else you think you know everything and everyone else knows nothing. One thing I have learned in life, there's always more to learn. And like Jack said, what life has taught me is I don't know anything. So if you believe that, it's disastrous, not just for you, but for your relationships. A well-balanced intellectual relates to people through the heart as well as the mind. And then they have a tendency to get brain freeze when it comes to making a decision. Determinate facts and information are kind of a safety net, okay? With the right facts, you think that you can't make the wrong choice, okay? No amount of facts and figures will ensure a right outcome every time. Okay? One of the most significant consequences for intellectuals is disconnecting from your intuitive abilities. Intellects can create rather compact realities for themselves when facts are their only companions. The most serious consequence of trusting your mind to navigate your life on its own is that it prevents you from acting spontaneously on those instructions that flood into you from intuition in an all-and-out effort to get you to redirect your life. All that's required of you is to say yes to the opportunity you're being offered. The thing is, you must act immediately, trusting your intuitive instruction. How many times have I tell you guys, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? Okay. That divine guidance and walking into the unknown. Opportunities like this can be life-changing, sending you down what is not just a complete life path, but also a path of transformation that positions you again and again to trust your intuition along with your intellect. From such a path, your intuitive intelligence must take form. Okay. So characteristics of an intuitive: you relate to the world through the life of the mind, ideas, concepts, information gathered from all kinds of sources. You learn for the sake of learning and the love of pure knowledge. You spend hours online letting curiosity lead you. You make decisions using a combination of reason, logic, and intuitive intelligence. You're on a quest for truth, for a deep understanding of the secrets of the universe and the fundamental laws of how they work. You continually stretch your mind with reading, lectures, and study. You regard painful or challenging times as wisdom jewels, treating failure and mistakes as learning opportunities. You approach life like a scientist, testing hypotheses and reaching reasoned conclusions. You gravitate toward people with active minds and stimulating conversation. You lead a carefully considered life. You look closely before you leap. I'm impulsive. You respond to people with your head before your heart? Not always. You're cultivating wisdom in order to improve your own life and world. Yeah. Did I put you all to sleep? Star, are you still here? Okay, so who had the Queen? Did anybody here have the Queen? Because the Queen is next. Let's see. We had a Royal. Who had the Royal? That's basically the same thing. I keep thinking DJ had the Royal, but maybe not. Yeah, DJ had the Royal. Okay. DJ's the only one that had a Royal. Okay. So the Queen is next and then the Rebel. We should be able to get these two in tonight. We'll try to get 4 each week, okay? You guys can always come back and listen a little bit at a time. So the Queen, the executive, this is a fairly new archetype. It could also be called the CEO or the princess. It's to learn how to be responsible for the well-being of others. To identify the cause or causes in which it is worth investing your power and influence. The lesson is to differentiate between authentic power and illusionary power. The defining grace is generosity. The inner shadow is compromising your integrity to maintain your throne. The Queen, executive partnering regal femininity with business acumen. The queen takes charge of situations for maximum results, commands center stage without even trying, uses her influence to empower others, looks her best at all times. Her challenge is sharing power in intimate relationships. Well, actually, this is not one of the newer ones. This is an inherited destiny. It's an entitled energy, and her power is not personal. Her power is on loan granted to her. They're symbolic carriers of the collective power of the people they rule, and your life journey is about learning to be responsible for the well-being of others. Okay. So women are being empowered to move into this archetype now. It's operating strong in their psychics. They're drawn to elegant clothing, quality jewelry, fine dining, same as the fashionista. Okay. You feel entitled to have these status symbols in your life. Some queens make light of their sense of entitlement, but believe me, they're not joking. Okay. And the operating word for queen is privilege. Privilege needs to be understood on more than one level. You know, I can think of two people that this fits. You can look around, you can hear all these, and you can say, oh, this fits that person or that person. The ordinary mind views privilege and entitlement as one and the same. It's through the power we attain, the more license we have to behave as we wish. The queen sees herself as above the laws that govern the rest of us. The challenge is for you to rise above the temptation to use this power bestowed upon you for your personal gain. It could be bestowed by corporations, associations, personal business, family, charismatic individuals. You need to handle it wisely, lest other people suffer for your self-serving choices. It is by nature to assume authority over others, but you need to take time to reflect on issues that have far-reaching consequences, especially for the people around you. So, the privilege of being in a position of power and influence. However grand or humble your kingdom, your arena might be, you may have worked hard to earn your position. But forces greater than you help to achieve it. The life journey involves learning how to manage a position of power and influence while dealing with the archetypal challenges. Vanity, a sense of entitlement, narcissism, and the desire to exploit your position for personal gain. Queens are demanding. Take charge type people. I should make everybody I do a personal reading for take this so I can get an idea. These things can be found in Control Freak or the Bully also, the shadow archetypes of the queen. Okay. A true queen may be charismatic with a personality that commands respect, but she recognizes her responsibility to others and is motivated by a desire to enhance the well-being of everyone. Okay. Even the title of mom qualifies as a privileged position. If you are the holder of power in the house, the one your family looks to for love and advice. Okay, despite the status and authority that comes with the queen archetype, it can be a source of conflict for women. So, because we associate it with power, it's the princess we associate with romance and the delights of being swept away by a knight in shining armor. The queen is often seen as unapproachable romantically. Okay. You might get lonely at the top, and then unless you continually remind yourself that the finest qualities Associated with royalty or benevolence, generosity, mercy, and the power to make things happen for people that they themselves are unable to use. So their challenge is to relate to other people, to be out and about, to put yourself out there, to invest your energy and passion in something that matters. You know, some of them are drawn to politics, some aren't. You know, rulers and politics go hand in hand, but the modern queen is more likely to be attracted to new creative ventures, community projects, social causes, and they need to have diplomacy. They're also trendsetters. Oprah is a good archetype of a queen, it says. You were born to put your creative power out in the world, no matter how small your world. Unless you find or create a worthy venture of some sort, you will go to war with yourself and others. You end up feeling useless, consumed by the notion that you were born to do or give something to this world if you feel powerless. You're attracted to power and aristocratic lifestyle, rituals that symbolize authority, such as having a town car, a Cadillac, okay, eating the best thing that the restaurant serves you. You like being treated as a queen. So the lesson is not to be obsessed with power, to be in the right relationship with power. Confronting the illusion of power is a particularly important lesson. Okay. You know, when you get two queens together, it's who's more powerful, who commands the most attention, who's the rule maker, you know. The lesson of mastering your own nature, your own divine power, if you will, is woven into the DNA of the queen archetype. It's up to the queen to come to terms with what qualifies as power and what doesn't. Okay. Is your power based on recognition you get from others, or does it arise from a function of healthy self-esteem? Power that comes from an external source is illusionary and fleeting, while power that emanates from within is authentic and lasting. And the greatest fear is to become powerless. You must confront that fear, as once it's running in your psyche, everything around you becomes potential threat. A queen can become uncomfortable, if not physically ill. Princess Diana was an example of that, okay? And you will keep finding yourself in situations where you find yourself in illusionary power outside yourself, until you finally make choices that are right for you, okay? And it's learning to interact with power while not losing yourself. So the word is generosity, the defining grace. It's the potential that it holds to transform your life. It's an instinctive response to need. Begins with an instinctive response to need. The sight of a needy person or a community hit by natural disasters tugs at your heartstrings. Helping with blankets, food, things like that. Okay. Being a change agent, helping other people. These people have the power to make things happen for other people. Okay. If you understand the true power of grace, of generosity, you will understand that this power is essentially spiritual. The most profound acts of generosity are those that empower others to realize their potential. Okay. The inner shadow is they have a tendency to compromise their inner integrity in order to hold on to their power. Because power and authority can be seductive and addictive. So it's coming into balance, okay? At some point, the power you will be asked to trade for the negative is the power of your own character and values. You can sense the presence of a challenge by your integrity, by the feeling of insecurity rising in your gut, accompanied by a downward shift in your behavior. You might start with gossiping about coworkers, introducing mistrust, escalating to playing power games like Game of Thrones. And behind underlying all that, yeah, to give expecting nothing in return, yeah. So your challenge is to rise above your fears and slay all your own inner dragons, okay? So some of the myths, it says it's a new archetype on the scene because of because of women coming into power. Okay, so it partners the feminine power of the queen as a regal force through history with the masculine power symbolic of today's corporate executive. This partnership allows women to attain leadership positions without feeling they must act like men or dress in power suits in order to gain a seat in the boardroom. Society has yet to create positive myths reflecting this rise to power of successful women because it's so new. And now they're trying to take the power away from women again. There's a lingering assumption that a woman has to compromise the feminine side of herself, marriage, partnership, and motherhood to some extent in order to achieve a successful position in the world arena. Okay? It takes time and experience for an evolving archetype to work its way into society. One sign that a new archetype has taken hold is that people begin to create stories or produce films in which the lead character is exactly the archetype. In The Devil Wears Prada, the queen executive is portrayed by a powerful, ruthless magazine editor. Yeah, but the time's now. Lifestyle challenges are maintaining personal relationships. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Star. Okay, power display destroys relationships as much as infidelity. You know, if you're in a powerful career out there and you come home to your husband, hi Kelly, and you're used to taking control, you have to take the time to wind down in order to move into a partnership mode in order to meet your husband in halfway. You can't stay in the queen mode because it'll destroy your marriage, okay? Your challenge is to take off your crown and return to being a woman in your personal relationships. That means being committed to cooperation, compromise, and mutual respect, whether with an intimate partner or family members or friends. So you know you're a queen if you take charge of situations for the sake of achieving maximum results. You make things happen for other people. Empowering others is your finest achievement. You are direct in dealing with others and let people know what you expect of them. You absolutely must look your best at all times. You pour your energy into worthwhile causes. You're never just a figurehead. You use your influence to make a difference in people's lives. You work hard to uphold your character and values. You naturally end up in positions of power and authority, even when you don't actively seek them. You can be intimidating to people who are trying to get close to you. You command center stage without trying wherever you are. You have a demanding job that puts you in the public eye. You may not give orders, but no questions, you're the person in charge. Okay? Tap into your creativity and your partnership when you get home. How you doing, Kelly? So we've done rebel. No, we're doing rebel next. We've done fashionista, intellectual, and queen tonight. The last one is rebel. The only one that was a rebel was Star. And I was reading this trying to fit her into one of the categories. And I think it's the last one. So the rebel is a maverick feminist, breaks through barriers that restrict the fundamental liberties of the human spirit. To find your challenge is to find your own personal voice and form of expression. She's doing that. To transcend the need to engage in power struggles as a way of expressing authority in your life. I know. Listen to this, hon. Listen to this. Your defining grace is justice. Your inner shadow is confronting an ego motivated by a personal agenda to gain attention. I'm doing good, hon. So it talks about Prometheus is the myth of the rebel. So the rebel speaks out against discrimination and oppression, challenges injustice, wears bold and daring styles, does things in non-traditional ways, chooses the less traveled road, introduces radically new ideas into the culture, thrives on making waves. And the challenge is to not allow the rebel in you to control your emotional nature. And the rebel is broken down into 4 types, okay? It's a complex archetype. But the core characteristics of the rebel remains the same, beginning with something that human beings share, a rebellious streak. Our survival instincts awaken early on and are honed and refined by our parents and other elders through basic instructions. We're taught not to avoid fire by not playing with matches, for example, okay? So like clockwork, a rebellious streak emerges in the teens. Hairstyles and clothing become outrageous. We start experimenting with drugs and alcohol and become sexually active. Extreme attitudes and behavior are all part of the rebellious years. We are programmed to break out of the restrictive patterns of the elder generation and forge new patterns of our own. But as an adult, you have to confront your teenage rebellious streaks and take control of its impulsive hair trigger. Many people outgrow their teenage years. Others choose to nurture their rebellious streak, absorbing it into their... We still play with matches, yeah. Absorbing it into your nature. Okay? These individuals go through life controlled by knee-jerk rebellious attitude, and their behavior can damage their relationships and professional opportunities. They are defined by their sense of personal power, by the rule, no one's going to tell me what to do. Oh, my attitude is, oh, tell me I can't do it? I'm going to do it. So some rebellious streaks are stronger than others. And there's 4 expressions. There's the noble rebel, the anarchist rebel, the social civil rebel, and the feminist rebel. And the closest one I found for a star was the feminist. So the noble rebel is connected to, like, the founding fathers were noble rebels, okay? They rebelled against tyranny, injustice, inhumanity, and social evil. Are we not repeating some of that right now? Mine is hold my vape, watch this. Okay. Oh, the noble rebel openly challenges the oppressive ways of government or dictators or other controlling systems in order to secure freedoms for a repressed group or society. Yeah. So our nation was founded upon the rights of human spirit and it was the grandest human experience meant ever to take place on Earth. They were aware that they were attempting to give birth to what could be the most inspiring nation of all time, while simultaneously committing treason against their government. The noble rebel doesn't challenge a government or system just to pick a fight. It's not an archetype of street fighters or terrorists. They respond to crimes against humanity and oppression. Yes, the grand design. Okay. You know, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela were example of noble rebels, okay? Their nonviolent resistance involves neither attacking nor returning aggression with aggression. Okay. So becoming a noble rebel is not a conscious decision. You're either born with this depth charge of an archetype in you or you're not. How do you know? Well, how did Gandhi know he was passionate about helping liberate India from British rule? Or how did Martin Luther King Jr. know he was passionate about working toward equality for all? These men were driven by an innate sense of justice for humanity, not just for themselves. Not a personal cause, even though it cost them everything at a personal level in their lives. They're born passionate about human rights and human dignity. Yeah. They are committed to humanity, whether or not they want to be. Trust me, if you have this impulse in you, you know it by now. So the anarchist rebel is the one most likely associated, okay? They're more complex. They usually consist of rebels. Okay, so the TV shows somebody toting guns and torching buildings. Okay. The anarchist rebel is more often than not motivated to overthrow authority out of desperation. Often some spontaneous cataclysmic event symbolic of the desperation unleashes a widespread belief that an opportunity for change has come. The most common thread was the toppling of abusive dictatorships. Repressed people saw an opportunity to liberate themselves from decades of oppression by violent governments. This sort of power this archetype wields is volatile. It walks a thin line between fighting for the downfall of a repressive regime and taking advantage of that fight to strike out as a barbarian rebel. They're driven by the darkest of human emotions. But you still have the hope of a better day as your driving force. If you take your eyes off that vision, it does not take much for the barbarian to take over. Okay. Social civil rebel. They start out as protest movements. The underlying intention is to gather sufficient support around the issues to ignite a civil rebellion. We're going through that now. Women are coming together and doing this now. The suffragettes and the anti-war Vietnam War protesters are perfect examples. The Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. Okay. While many such rebellions come and go without making much of a dent in the social or political fabric, other movements led by the social civil rebellions have kept in check government actions that were covert or completely disregarded the rule of law and the Constitution. And investigative reporters can be like this, like MoveOn.org to expose stories and stuff. Angelina, how are you tonight? Okay. So the feminist rebel, this is the one I thought was you, Star, more than anything. is a This expression of the rebel archetype was the most widespread and mainstream in our society at present. This could shift in the blink of an eye. The feminist rebel has adapted a more conventional avenue of expression, molding themselves more in keeping with the grander social movement of individualism. Self-discovery and self-expression have had a profound impact on the form rebellion takes. Those of you with this archetype are more likely to be rebelling against conventional life choices and staging sit-ins. I'm getting better, Gina. I know it's Gina, huh? Okay, so there are some things that feminist rebels are overturning. Marriage is losing ground as single-parent households increase. Divorce is now a viable choice for women, and no-fault divorces remove the painful and humiliating need to prove adultery. Single women are choosing to adopt or bear children via sperm donors. The social climate has evolved dramatically since the most recent wave of feminists took the streets in the 60s and 70s. As a society, we're turning inward and doing more self-expression. You're part of the new wave of rebels whose frontier is internal and whose rebellion is more likely to be against your inner boundaries than against any civil or social ones. The feminist rebels' forebears carved a path, some with blood and guts, so that women could vote, have a voice in politics, work for equal pay, not to mention equal creative opportunities, and be sexually liberated. You may take all these rights for granted, but they didn't happen overnight. And I think we're going back right into that, aren't we? Yeah. So the first wave was the women's suffrage movement, where they passed in 1920, granting women the right to vote. There's even rumblings of trying to take the right to vote away from us. Girls, pay attention. The second wave was the women's liberation movement in the 60s. Okay. The third wave, starting in the 80s and continued to the present, women live in a different world now. Okay. The feminist rebel is neither a radical nor a protester. You're living in a world that touts the values of diversity and individual expression. With the exception of those who have participated in the Occupy movement, you're probably not interested in fighting for a cause or even being identified with one. Yeah. And don't even identify with the word feminist. You're dynamic, unique, maybe unconventional, even bold and daring, but definitely not a radical. You can even rebel against being a liberated woman and choose a traditional marriage and motherhood lifestyle or a hybrid that alternates careers with raising children. You're far more likely to rebel against convention by selecting an edgy or offbeat outfit than to take a position on a current political thing. You're just not a fighter in that way. Okay? You cherish your self-confidence, your independence, and your willingness to take a risk. Should someone even consider tampering with those treasured personal freedoms, the feminist rebel in you has the grit to take off the gloves and start a personal, if not professional, rebellion. Yeah. Today's feminist rebel is a beneficiary of the devoted efforts of the women of the first and second wave who stood up for human rights, believing we could make a world a better place. You may not man the barricades, but it's important for you to remember the great women who paved the way for you to be something in this world. Do something in this world. Give your something to the world. This is your heritage. So the unique challenge evolves into another expression in keeping with the thinking patterns of the collective social mind. Breaking with convention and being experimental. You thrive on pushing the envelope and sometimes on sending shockwaves into the social atmosphere with the choices you make in everything from hair color to motherhood. Traditional ways of doing things make you feel smothered. Yeah. It's a challenge for you to discover a creative, dynamic, and productive way to utilize your rebellious nature, lest it become a destructive element in your psyche. Fields where your vitality and convention-busting urges are ideal include music, arts, fashion, design, cosmetics, tech area. Why not? And what else can we do? Yep. Justice is the grace of your archetype. Your feminine rebel has more than enough guts to complete and succeed. The universal lesson is restraint. Didn't we just talk about some of that? It has a reputation for having a hair-trigger temper, for overreacting, for not thinking through the consequences. That rebelliousness makes challenging decisions that really need to be thoughtfully and carefully thought out. You have a tendency not to look at the rebellious reactions and conscious rebellious decisions. Both have consequences. You tend to be emotionally charged and careless. Frequently, there are power statements that erupt out of frustration but lack focus, leadership, and a clear outcome. Raising questions like, what are the specific plans for and after the rebellion? Who will be in charge and where do we go from there? So the lesson for this archetype, don't rebel just to make noise when it comes to making decisions, especially those that initiate change and shatter the rules of convention. It's essential to call upon the best of your inner spirit to take charge. If you're going to launch a rebellion, reflect on this. I know what I don't want. Do I know what I want? Is it worth a rebellion, or does this situation call for a discussion? And the defining grace is justice. You rise against injustice and oppression of any sort. Sounds like a Libra thing, honey. You also inspire others to break through barriers and initiate new beginnings because it's the right choice. On a more subtle level, this grace inspires rebel in you to be a change agent in less aggressive ways, always moving in the direction of introducing the new. Rebels are the people who challenge outdated social codes and more, lending support to issues like gay marriage and medical marijuana because you view them as matters of civil justice. Politicians pay attention, as evidenced by the number of states that now sanction marriage between same-sex couples. Okay, so the inner shadow is a craving for attention, and you need to feel a sense of accomplishment. If I'm going to go through all this effort and stuff, is it going to work out? You're creative, ambitious, dynamic, fun, even wild. But when you're not appreciated for your outrageousness, you can flush red with jealousy and reshape the world into a battlefield, turning friends into competitors and not deadly enemies. Personal agendas can become dangerous personal itineraries. So it talks about Prometheus. He gave fire to man after Zeus told him no. So Zeus punished him and gave his brother Pandora, hung him upside down on a cliff so that he could be tortured during the day by an eagle that ate his liver, which grew back during the night so his torment could be repeated again the next day. Ugh. So the goddesses fashioned a box and gave it to Pandora. Zeus sends Pandora to Earth to marry Epimetheus, and she couldn't wait to open the box, so she unleashed plague, illness, tragedy, death, grief, envy. Okay. But he may have jumped the gun, okay, because he was assuming that Zeus would never give man fire, and rebelled against the wisdom of the gods, and took it upon himself to redirect the plan. He paid for his act of rebellion. Your challenge is thinking through, how will this challenge, this rebellious choice, affect my life? You learned that one, didn't you, honey? A rebellious choice can be anything. Once you break free of one pattern, breaking free of the next one, and the next one after that gets easier and easier. You know, the more you break free of all the traditional stuff, the more free you get, okay? Have you shown a rebellious streak since childhood? You define your character by your right to challenge injustice. You speak out against discrimination and oppression. You resist taking orders and follow your own counsel. You're pursuing a different spiritual path from the faith of your childhood. You thrive on making waves and upsetting the status quo. You are unconventional and independent, a free and creative thinker. You would have led a rebel charge in the American Revolution if you'd been around back then. You do things in a non-traditional way. You're an agent of change, including radical new ideas into the culture. You wear bold and daring styles, and you choose the less traveled road. It says, be a rebel with a cause. Now that I've bored everybody and everybody's left, we're all still here, besides Star. Are you ready to go on and do yours, hon? Are you ready? Here but lagging? Okay. That's okay, teardrops, you're here. Star, you ready to go on and do yours now? Okay. Well, we can just skip that until next week and just go in and do spiritual talk next, if you want to do that, hon. We can do that. Okay, fine. That's You got to take care of you first, hon. You and your daughter. Okay. So let's just go in and do spiritual talk then. We'll tell them we'll do numerology next week then. Okay. That make sense? That's okay. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close up for tonight. Nobody wanted to hear archetypes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close it up and we'll just go in and do spiritual talk. That'll give Star more time to get ready next week. Okay, so everybody have a good one and namaste. Give everyone about 10 minutes and you went live. Oh, okay. Okay.